Hello, and welcome to my presentation about hemochromatosis. My name is Miles Sanger, and I'll be your guide today. So, what is hemochromatosis? Well, hemochromatosis is a genetic disease that changes how we regulate iron absorption. So, when we have this genetic disease, we can't regulate how much iron is coming into our bodies from our foods, and it goes to all sorts of different kinds of organs. And this can lead to many kinds of diseases, cancers, especially in like the liver, and those sorts of areas. Most at risk are people like me, Caucasians of Northern European descent. And there are an estimated 1 million people in the United States that have hereditary hemochromatosis, which is the kind of hemochromatosis I'll be talking about. That's a quote from genome.gov. Hemochromatosis is inherited in an autosomal recessive pattern, as you can see on the diagram on the right. Both a sperm cell and an egg cell must contain the mutation during fertilization. There's multiple kinds of hemochromatosis, but again, I'll be talking about hereditary hemochromatosis, or HH. You could take a second and look at that diagram. Hemochromatosis is actually very difficult to diagnose because diseases like depression share common symptoms. So it could be something else, or you could just have that cancer or that disease. There's some ways to test, though. There's a blood test, which uses this saturation by taking some blood, and it's not foolproof, though. The cheek test swabs your cheek and takes some cells and does a gene test, which is about 85% accurate. And the whole blood test is a gene test that uses blood taken from your arm, and it's about 85% accurate, just like the cheek test. These are done as early as possible, as an early diagnosis is much less risk. But it can also happen, say, if you're trying to have a child. You might want to be tested just to make sure that you don't have those genes. With an early treatment, you're expected to have a very full life, but if it's left untreated, it can lead to some major health conditions, which will definitely shorten your life because of these diseases. There is very simple treatment, though, especially if you do it early, and this is done by performing a phlebotomy, which lowers the level of iron in your blood, and you'll be safe. Gene therapy isn't necessary, so it's not available. So this is because of a mutation in the human homeostatic iron regulator gene. That's a lot to say, so we call it HFE. And it's a missense mutation. It's in chromosome 6, this gene. And what it does is it creates a protein located right on the cell surface, which sort of communicates with other proteins that are also on the surface that can detect this iron. And because of that, it knows, and it can say, hey, we don't want this iron anymore. So when it's not working, as you can see, we'll have a lot more iron in our bloodstream. Here's a quote from Medline Plus. The CYS2H2TYR mutation prevents the altered HFE protein from reaching the cell surface. The HIS63ASP mutation likely alters the three-dimensional shape of the protein. These mutations prevent the HFE protein from interacting with the transferrin receptor 1 and other proteins. So, because it can't interact, it's not able to detect the iron intake, and it's not able to prevent it. So here's a gene chart of these mutations that I have made. As you can see, the two on the top are non-pathogenic, meaning that they don't actually cause this disease. So if you have those two mutations in the HFE gene, which are common, you'll still be safe. However, on the bottom three, we can see that these all have a major change in the polarity, positive to negative, nonpolar to positive or nonpolar to polar, right? Because of that, and the other two are nonpolar to nonpolar and silent, which means there's not really that major change. Because of that, they're pathogenic and they cause this genetic disease. So they'll cause the iron to be much more difficult to detect. Here's a research article that I found. It's from Science Daily, and it talks about a very recent study that was done about hemochromatosis. It's called Common Gene Disorder Causes Stealth Disease, but could be easily treated. And it details two very recent studies that were done on people with hemochromatosis. Contrary to the belief that everyone had previously, it was shown to quadruple the risk of liver disease and double the risk of arthritis, as well as virility. It was also shown to higher risk of diabetes and chronic pain, and deaths from liver cancer were much higher, but still low in men. So this is clearly a problem, and it's much worse than we had previously thought, especially with something so common. But again, it still can be treated, especially if it's seen early. Thank you. That's all I have. Hope you enjoyed.